Welcome to Lift the Gate with Lift Business Resources, the interview series that's all about unlocking the doors to knowledge and sharing the tools you need to elevate your business. I'm Katie Santoro, and I'm thrilled to have you here. This series is designed for business owners like you who are eager to learn, grow, and navigate the challenges of running a successful business with confidence and clarity. Each episode, we bring you inspiring conversations with industry leaders, experts, and entrepreneurs who are here to share their expertise and actionable strategies to help you thrive. Today, I'm excited to introduce our guest, Lisa Crilley Mallis, the owner of Impactive Strategies. Lisa brings her expertise to service-based business owners looking to work less and achieve more. With a background in education and over a decade of experience as a successful entrepreneur, Lisa knows firsthand the challenges of balancing ambition and well-being. Known for her commitment to help others reclaim their time and reignite their passion for their businesses, Lisa empowers her clients to transform their busyness into strategic action, utilizing their zone of genius. Lisa is past president of NAWBO Northeast Ohio and is actively involved with GAGA Growth Partnership. You're going to have to pronounce that one for me. To learn more about productivity solutions that last, visit www.impactivestrategies.com. In this episode, we'll dive deep into the art of delegation, uncover the transformative power of operating in your zone of genius, and explore how these strategies can propel your business to new heights. Let's get started. Lisa, let's start with the GAGA Growth Partnership. I cannot say that word.
I know it's hard to believe it's Giaga Growth Partnership.
Okay.
We always laugh because, my office is on Chillicothe Road, right? In Chagrin, in the county of Giaga. So if you could even come close to getting any of those words accurate, good. You obviously are from the area.
I can't imagine how much you have to spell things when you tell people
All of those.
address.
Yes, always.
And then you've got 3 names, so that probably just takes you like an
Just
hour.
all of the things. Yes, all of the things.
Well, I'm so excited to have you today. So you and I met at NAWBO 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I think it was the Long Beach Leadership Conference. And you definitely like changed my life that day. For some reason volunteered. I was feeling super burnt out. And you and the audience, when everybody said, "What do you do?" I said, "Oh, I'm a virtual assistant." And everybody said, "Why don't you have an assistant?" That was a good question. I have one now, and it's been life-changing. But we've stayed in touch, and I just always love our conversations. So that's how we met. Tell me about your background and how you got started with Impactive Strategies.
Absolutely. And I remember you volunteering, like always. Every time I do a presentation, I'm always like, oh, why did you not set up for someone to volunteer in case no one volunteers? And I always, when you're in the front asking for one, I'm always like, you know better. You should always have someone in the room just in case. And as that was going through my mind, you're like, I'll do it. And I was like, yes, I don't know this woman, but I like her so much already. And then since then, here we are always. So thank you again for volunteering and the compliment. I'm so happy to know that I helped to better your world. How did I start the business? So I started my professional journey in high school education because I wanted to coach softball. And so therefore, the only way I could figure out how to do that was to be a math teacher because it all goes together, right? Because you should spend 8 hours a day doing something that you're good at but don't necessarily love so that you can spend 2 hours after school doing something that you love. Like 22-year-olds should not be able to make life decisions ever. However, that's how I chose my major in college. Like that was how I made decisions. So as I progressed through my career in high school education, moving out of the classroom, hard to believe I didn't last there after making it for that choice, and into various administrative positions, I realized, this is not what I love, and there has to be more to the world. And was married to a man who ended up spending 42 years in the classroom. And so I could see someone who did love high school education. And I kept like looking at going, this is not me. This is not me. And it was really my first experience with Zone of Genius, which I know we'll talk about later. not knowing that's what it was, but seeing, okay, here's something I'm good at, but don't really love. And so luckily, while I was in education, a number of people kept coming to me and asking me, would you help me do these things? And all these things had something to do with time management or had something to do with productivity or organizing of some sort. And what I kept finding was that all these people that I was helping, they all really wanted to make an impact and they wanted to make money and they wanted to have this type of freedom with their lives. And so they started these businesses and they were all different types of businesses, but they were buried every day in tasks.
Mhm.
And so then they were choosing between serving their clients or figuring out how to make more money or being present for their family and having a hobby or sleeping or whatever. And so I started to recognize, hey, you know what? I have these skills where I can sequence things really well and I can organize these things really well and I can figure out this path through chaos. Like all these people are overwhelmed and it's so easy for me to see you just do these things. And so I said, okay, look, I have the skill set. I have the background from my work in education on how people's brains work. I really love doing these things. So, not having any idea how to run a business, I left the world of education and started my own business. And that's how the business was born.
Was that a terrifying moment for you, or is that a liberating moment for you? Or was it both?
It was a moment of ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
Total, like I was like, oh, well, I'll just go do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had the security of, my husband was employed. We had health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how hard could it be? Like I had picked up clients before I had opened the business.
Yeah.
I assumed just build a website and they will come. And then a year in, I was like, holy, all the words. This is not that easy. Yeah, I had clients at the beginning, but now what?
Yeah.
Like,
You're not going to stay
it's easy
forever.
to make. Yeah, like now we have to make this sustainable, like a marketing plan. What's that? Like all that stuff. And
Yeah.
so then it became terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
But at the beginning, it's like, oh, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ready to go. That's interesting. My first business, I started a yoga studio and I was terrified. I mean, I was excited about it, but I remember the first week we opened, same idea, like, oh, we'll start a website and like we'll do these things and we're putting up a sign and like people are gonna come and then nobody came and we had this management software that we were paying a ton of money for and I didn't know how to use it. And I cried every day for like 2 weeks. But I figured it out. Figured
Mhm.
it out. Terrifying, but exciting. Awesome. Okay, I'm really big on delegation. I know how important it is, but sometimes it's hard for me to explain to people how important it is because one thing about me is I'm an Aquarius. I'm always right. So I don't need to explain to you why it's important. It's just important and you need to do it. And that's my mentality. But I feel like you can probably explain why it's so critical for business owners and leaders.
I don't know. That's a lot of pressure because I also want to be like, look, you've paid me because you believe in me. Do we have to get in the weeds with why I'm telling you to do the thing?
If it
However,
weren't important, you wouldn't be here, right? Like they've come to you because they know that delegating is important. But
I know. But let's see if I can give you a couple really good reasons.
yeah.
Uh, I think the biggest is that working alone, we're limited in what we can accomplish. Like the reality is we have to sleep at some point in time. And so in itself, that gives us constraints on what we want to accomplish. And so if you've started your business, so my belief is that people start their businesses because they are looking to make some sort of an impact, whether that impact is with the clients that they're serving, or the people who are buying their products, or it's because they're trying to make an impact with their family or themselves with the money they're creating, or both. At some point, you run out of capacity to do the stuff.
Pretty
And
quick.
so if you look right very quickly, so
Very
if you
quick.
look at it from a very practical standpoint, you will hit a level that you can't overcome because you just don't have any more time. And that's why you need to delegate, and then if you take it out of that very, very practical level and take it up one more, you are not an expert at everything.
Yeah.
Like, there's just no way that you can be super, super skilled at every single thing. And so if you decide that you want to be exceptionally skilled at everything, you have to learn those skills, which means it's taking away the time to do the other things.
Right.
And it's just a snowball effect.
Yeah. There's also the aspect of like, for me, I'm busy. Most when I'm working, I work my 5 to 6 hours a day, and like that is focused time and I'm working. And I don't have the mental capacity. So when a problem arises, I need to be able to delegate it to someone and say, look, this is even if it's a small problem, right? Like I can't figure out this PDF, or like this is not going right. Like I need to be able to pass it to somebody and say, just take this mental burden from me because I can't handle anymore.
Yes, we just switched text systems, and somehow, after 2 weeks on the next text system, every time I got an email from someone who was in my contacts list, I was getting an in-app verbal notification.
Oh God.
It didn't happen when we first switched, but 2 weeks in, and my phone, and I can't turn my phone off. I can't turn the entire app off because we have other things set up that I do need a
Yeah.
notification. And I'm like, okay, A, not my skill set.
Yeah.
B, don't have the patience for it. C, don't have the mental capacity
Yeah.
because I am working on other things.
Well,
And so,
now you've tried because everything is dinging at you every 5 seconds.
like,
So, I mean, the technology is the worst for productivity.
right? And I was like, this is not great. So yeah, that's why you delegate.
Yeah.
Like, if for no other reason, then your phone's going crazy.
Yeah. It's so true. People are afraid of it, and it's funny because we get hired to be, someone that can be delegated to, and people don't want to do it, and then they get mad because they're not making any progress, and it's like, well, you actually have to do it, and it's really scary at first, and you have to build trust in someone, but like you got to do it. That step one, do it, right? Like that easy. And there's a lot of mistakes that people make when they delegate. I could tell you a bazillion of them. What are some that you have experienced?
So when I think about delegating, I think of it in three buckets. I think about who are you delegating to, what are the things that you're delegating, and then how's the handoff happening? So who, like one mistake I'm thinking about in the who place is not matching the skills and the tasks.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, like you find someone that you love and you know their skill set and you've given them the work, and then you start to veer a little bit outside of what they're really, really good at.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to veer a little more outside. And then all of a sudden, you're way outside of what they're great at. And then you start to get frustrated because they're not doing, either they don't do that well, or they start not to do the stuff they're really good at well.
Right.
And I think about my first VA, the best proofreader. Like she started a business, she was the word doctor. Like she was so good, like that was part of what she did. And I had her doing stuff that I had her doing website, like really complicated website stuff, not in her skill set. And then I would get mad when an e-blast would go out with a typo in it. Well, hello, that's my fault.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a who challenge. What, not delegating burnout zone tasks quick enough. And so burnout zone tasks, as you know, are those tasks where we're really good at them, but we don't love them.
Yep.
And so they're sucking our energy. But usually I find that people will hold on to them because they only take a minute.
But
But
the
those
amount
minutes,
of weight, mental weight, I have a task on my plate right now that I'm like, well, I have to do this. And I've been holding on to it. Lisa, it's been on my to-do list. I've transferred it every damn day to the next to-do list for a month. And
right.
I get in bed at night, I'm like, I didn't do that thing. So yeah, that's something I should be delegating. Thank you.
You're
Breakthrough.
welcome. You're
Mhm.
welcome. Because when we think about it, there's that mental weight and then the guilt of not doing it.
Mhm.
Or you do it and you're like, ugh, I hate that task, but I'm really good at it. And so why would I give it to someone else? Or whatever the guilt that goes with it.
Yeah.
Then the other one is the how, like in the how bucket. And I think about it as like clear is kind. And I think that's a Brene Brown quote. Clear
I
is
think it is.
kind. And it's not spending enough time up front, getting all your ducks in a row before you give the stuff to someone.
Preach.
Whatever that looks like, whether it's not being clear on the outcome that you want, whether it's not getting the process pulled together, whether it's not getting all the resources that they need, passwords, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's, which usually does not take a ton of time
Mhm.
to pull together. But you're like in a hurry because you're busy because you need to delegate. And so you're just like, here's the thing. That is not delegating. Here's the thing, go do it, is not delegating, in case you're wondering.
It is not. And whoa, we see that so much, so much. Just like here, do this thing. It's like, well, I don't have access to your passwords. I don't have access to any of these documents. We onboarded someone on our internal team the other day, or recently. She's been with us about 2 months, and I had a call with her, and I was like, well, do you have these things? And she was like, no. And I was like, oh my God, that is my fault as the leader. I didn't give you access to this. And I'm asking you to do these things, and you don't have the full picture. She's still doing a fantastic job. And I was like, how are you doing this without the full picture? But you have to give the full picture. And I'm a really big fan of giving context. This is why we're doing it.
Mhm.
Because if you say just do it, like think about little kids when you're like, just do what I say, they don't want to do it. But if you're like, we're doing this because this is the outcome that we're looking for, people are going to be more motivated to be proactive in their
Right.
task and ask for more help.
And they can make more decisions
Mhm.
without asking a lot of little questions
Yep.
because they have a better idea of where it fits into the big picture, so they can make those decisions on the little questions.
Yeah. And that's something interesting about delegating as well is the questions. Something that we like to ask as we're kind of onboarding a new client is, do you want them to ask all the little questions or do you want them to figure it out? So knowing who you are as a leader, whether or not you are a please come to me with the questions or I'm a figure it out and come to me with an answer. Like that's my leadership style. Like I'll give you what you need, but I want you to come to me with an answer because I don't have the mental space. Being able to communicate that as a delegator, how much you want them to ask and how much you want them to need from you is really important.
Right, right. And when I'm working with clients, I'll say, look, when your staff is hitting you with a lot of questions, there's a couple of things that are happening. One could be that you have not given them enough information.
Mhm.
And so you need to look at you. Is that a you thing? I said another one is they may have gotten a little complacent or lazy because you've made it so easy for them. And that's also a you thing.
Yeah.
And so three before me. I said, so you tell them you need to check three resources before you come to me with a question. I said, and when you come to me with a question, you need to tell me how you would answer it.
I love that. Just be
So, I'm not sure what to do here. I've checked these places. I still haven't found an answer. And this is what I think I might do because of these reasons.
right.
And then wherever your knowledge base is, wherever you're keeping that, you get that question and those answers into there.
Yep. I love that. The three before me.
Mhm.
Share that with my team. It's a good one. Um, okay. So, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, but that zone of genius, and we all know what it feels like to not be in our zone of genius. But tell me, like, how did you how did you discover your own zone of genius, which you are now? And we talked about that a little bit earlier, also realizing that like you're good at this thing, and just because you can doesn't mean you should. I say that a lot in business. But let's just talk through a little bit about like what is a zone of genius? What does it mean?
Yeah. So the way I define zone of genius is it's the intersection, like a think of Venn diagram
Mhm.
of what you're really, really good at, what you love to do, and what moves a business forward. And
Mm,
so as we're talking business owner, or even as you're looking at your team, all three of those pieces have to be there. Because if you're missing any one of those, it's either not a business activity,
mhm.
which is fine. Just let's not look at it as a business activity. Or it's going to be in your burnout zone, or you don't have the skill at this moment. So let's not be spending a lot of work time on it until you
Delegate it to
either,
someone who has the
yeah,
skill.
let's
Yeah.
give it to someone who has the skill. And so that's my definition of zone of genius.
Mhm.
Then when I look at how did I discover it, part of it was like that at first I assumed everyone was really good at what I was good at because we just assume it's
Mhm.
easy for us,
Right.
therefore it's easy for everyone.
Right.
So it didn't even register that it could possibly be my zone of genius. Then I was lucky enough that I had enough people coming to me asking to help them with things in a tight enough time period that I was like, oh, wait a minute. I could see the similarities and I could see very clearly they were not good at it. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, hey, guess what? This is something I have that they don't. Okay, I think I can monetize this. This is a good thing. And then it was a matter of, all right, how can I start to refine it? And I started to just like ask people, like, if, what's one thing you think I do better than anybody else? And so when I teach Zone of Genius, I have people just text out, like right then. So if when you're listening to this right now, pause this recording and text it to people who know you, all areas of your life, and just say, what's one thing that I do better than anybody else? And you'll get all sorts of answers, and you're just looking for what's the thread that goes through it. And so what I found was mine is finding the path through chaos. Like that is what I do. Now, it took years to be able to get it into that tight of a phrase,
Yeah.
but that's what it is. What I also found recently was making connections, which I was like, well, yeah, because I do this like periodically. I was like, well, absolutely. I can get you from point A to point B. And it was last month, and someone's like, no, no, no. I mean, making connections with people.
Mm.
She's like, don't just think of making connections to get from one place to the next, like in a project or she's like, I mean, connecting the pieces, the people parts also. And I thought I never realized that. And so that was a piece of my zone of genius that was kind of, I don't want to say hidden, but that I didn't recognize or didn't explore um, out of the obvious. Because I was like, of course I make connections.
Yeah.
Like, how do you think I get through the path of chaos? Like, duh. Like, you've got the idea. I'm the one that connects all the parts. So yeah. So that's kind of how I look at it.
That's a good zone of genius. That is being like very intuitive and empathetic to what other people truly need and figuring out other people's skills that you can connect them to. Especially in business, connecting people, right? Like sometimes people don't know what they need. So being able to have a conversation with someone going, you know what, you need to meet Lisa is what you need. Like you think that your problem is bookkeeping, but your problem is that your delegation sucks. And we need to get you a coach for that. Being able to make those
Yeah.
connections, I think is really, that's also a huge mental space because you're holding in your mind all these people that you know. I can just see like in your brain, like a whole like web of like people that at least I'm tired for you.
Yeah. In which I never like, and I do that. You've seen me do that. You've been with me when I
Yep.
do that.
Yep.
And I never never thought of it that way as it being a piece, but it's
Yeah.
all the same stuff.
Yeah. We could talk through ways to monetize that. I don't know if you've thought through it at all, but I have taken like a couple of kind of just like networking master classes through some other organizations that I'm part of. And I think it's a skill that's you have to you have to learn it. Like going out and networking and meeting people and making those connections, like everybody thinks it's all you get the business card and you come home and you put it into your CRM and like you've done your job. That's not what it is. There's a skill to it and an art to it. And I think that would be a really interesting masterclass for you to teach. So just keep that in mind.
Let's talk about that.
Just keep it in
Now
mind.
that I know it's a skill I have, we need to talk about it.
Yeah. Look at you uncovering your zone of genius.
I
Also, I'm just going to
know.
put it out there for anybody listening. Just because it's in your zone of genius doesn't mean you need to monetize it. Doesn't mean you need to share it with the world. Doesn't mean you need to do anything with it. If it's yours and
Absolutely.
you want to hold it tight, I mean, that brings me back to the yoga studio. When I taught yoga, I loved doing yoga. I love teaching it, but I started to learn that what I loved as my personal practice was taking so much energy to share with others that I don't want to do it anymore. And it almost ruined the practice for me. And I had gone to a 500-hour training in March of 2020 and came home halfway through because they closed the borders and the training was in Costa Rica and it was a month-long training. They sent us home. And when I went back the next year to finish that training, I had gone to this training to learn how to teach teachers to be teachers. And when I went back, I said, this is mine. I don't want to share it with anybody else. I don't need to share it with anybody else. And so what's in my zone is not necessarily monetizable or shareable, right? So I just want to put that out there because I think there's a lot of hustle culture, right? We're like, well, I can do this really well, so I'm going to monetize it. You don't necessarily have to.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And I love that you said that because that was one of those, like, I love exploring how maybe it can be, but I just love the fact that it's maybe it's not. Maybe it's just the fact of owning, I am really good at this.
yeah. And it's yours. And you can
Mhm.
use it for you too. You don't have to share it with other people and teach other people.
Yep.
Yeah. So what have you seen? Let's talk about some like kind of examples. What have you seen in your clients when they operate in the zone of genius? What is the outcome?
Good. I could talk about this forever. All right. So, one of my clients, I'm so excited about this. Uh, so she's an accountant and they do tax prep, but they also do monthly retainer accounting work.
Mhm.
And she just hit the 1 million mark
Oh, that's
for the
awesome.
first time, right? For the first time, a couple weeks before the end of the year. So super excited for her. And what they did was I want to say it took about a year in over the course of the last year. They mm, reworked what everyone was doing based on their zone of genius.
Mhm.
And they did it specifically around tax time,
Okay.
mostly. Like they also reworked some of the other stuff, but they really focused in on tax time so that they could up their tax business
Mhm.
to hit that 1 million mark.
Mhm.
And that was how they did it. So they upped their tax business, I think, by about 35%,
That's awesome.
all by the owner being able to shift a lot of her work to the team so that she could go out and do a lot more business development.
Mhm.
And then her team shifted their work around. So they were working more in their zone of genius. And they did not add more staff and they did not add more hours.
So
Which
did their stress and burnout levels stay like they didn't lose their minds?
they did not.
That is so important that that's like a dying profession, right? The CPAs. It's hard to find them. If you own a business, it's hard to find a good CPA because no one wants to do it.
Right. Yep. So they have a really cool model where they don't have like sick days and like stuff like that. Like you work because you're going to work more during tax season because that's how it is, and you're not going to work at the other time. Like they have a great model, and we did a lot of where's your stress now, where's your stress later, like all that assessing before and after tax season, and nope.
That's amazing.
So
And that's,
that's one.
yes.
So yeah, so that's one example, and then I'll give you another one from an IT, from my IT companies. So typically the proposals are written by the management team. So this is a company of, I think there's like 10 of them. So there's like three-ish in the management team. They have a tech who has leaned so much into his zone of genius that he now writes the proposals for any work that comes in that is in his specialty area, which was not something they had ever set out for him to do.
Mhm.
But he happened to be in with the owner when they were talking about some new business, and he says, I can write that. And they're like, all right, go ahead and give it a shot. And they're like, he now writes all of that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So that probably takes a lot of work off of his colleagues as well. Yeah.
Yep.
I feel like I need this for me.
I,
I've been working with my assistant. She's been working with me for over like a year now, and I love her. But every time that I come upon something else, I'm like, can you help me with this? Can you help me with this? She's really good at being like, I don't want to do that. And
which is,
she pushes back on me, which I love. But then recently we found something else and I was like, this is a really big internal problem. And like, I just need you to like help me problem solve it. And the things that have come out of her mouth, I'm like, how are you like this is your zone. This is it. And it comes back to like the thing that she did before she worked with us. And I knew she had that skill set, but I didn't know she wanted to dive back into that skill set. And now that she's in an environment where it's not toxic, she's like, yeah, I love doing this. I just stopped doing it because I was in such a toxic environment doing it before. So
Mhm.
I think that I wonder what your perspective is on that, like how the environment can affect your zone of genius.
I agree. I absolutely think that it can. I think about especially like the burnout zone place
Mhm.
because I think that things that you're really good at, like that's not going to change. Like you're going to be really great at a skill,
Right.
that's going to stay there. I
Mhm.
mean, I think things can move into there, but
Right.
I think like the fact that you're really great at something, that's not going to go away. I think it's whether or not you love it, that's going to change. And I think it's going to, environment can adjust it. I think there can be things that I used to love, like my environment isn't I'm my own boss. I would hope it's not toxic, but like there, I
Self-centered.
might, but I might get bored.
Right.
Like I might do something and then all of a sudden it'd be like, yeah, that it no longer has the mental challenge that
Hmm.
it used to. And I don't want to do that anymore. And so
Yeah.
I'm thinking of one of my clients right now where she's like, yeah, I built my company and this was my bread and butter and I used to love it. But I need to move out of that area now and train some people into there
Hmm.
because I'm bored. It all feels the same to me right now. And like I'm coasting and I don't want to be coasting right now.
Interesting. I was going to ask, like, can your zone of genius change? And that answer is that it's not your zone of genius that's changing. It's the love it part of that Venn diagram that can change.
Mhm. And I also think the other thing that can change is the fact that, remember, we have that third part about moves the business forward.
Hmm.
And as our businesses change, the ROI on the activities change. And
Yeah.
so networking groups that used to give us a great ROI or marketing activities that used to give us a great ROI, like those things, clients that or
Mhm.
client work or service delivery. I mean, you guys just adjusted how you're doing business.
Mhm.
So a lot of change happened there. So I think that activities within your zone of genius, absolutely through the business piece of it, can change.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've been doing a lot of like soul searching the past 2 weeks. It, the last 2 weeks for us in this time period was Christmas. So I wasn't getting 100 emails a day, which was really nice. And I sat around and really thought about like what have the changes been in the business this year and what can we let go of? Like what did we do last year that is no longer serving us and no longer moves the business forward? And a lot of it is, a lot of things changed in 2024 compared to 2023. The way we network changed significantly. The way people do business changed significantly. So being able to like sit down and say, this is no longer moving us forward. And I don't love doing it. allows me to let go of the shit that's not my zone of genius.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at what to let go of.
Yeah.
I love it. So I love your examples, especially the example with the CPA. Like, can you go do that with all CPA firms? Or
Yeah.
maybe not because it's been so successful for them. Like,
Well,
I want to share that secret with everyone, but
the way that I look at it is there's seven people in their office.
mhm,
And I feel like the model that we used with them works
mhm,
really well, 10 or less.
mhm.
CPA, service-based business works perfect in about that size,
Yeah,
exactly how we've developed it. Recently, I had a conversation with someone, they had like 35, and I left thinking, we're
yeah,
going to get impact there if we get that, like a big RFP process, like a lot of things. I'm like,
yeah,
we can make impact there, but it's not going to be like the impact I can make with 10 people. Because with 10 people or fewer, I can get you all in the room and we can literally talk about our zone of genius. Everyone can understand, and we can hand off tasks right in the room.
mhm. I wonder if a model would work with that many people. So, our team is growing, and
Mhm.
there's a point where you can no longer manage everybody on the team. Like,
Mhm.
even when people are full grown adults and they know what their job is, you just reach your max. And in my brain, because I'm an organizer and everything gets organized in my brain and makes sense. Um, Teams, like, look, these people, they're doing the same things. They're just doing them in different teams and they function as their own units. I wonder if that would be a better way to take from 10 to 30. 30 is a lot of
Yeah.
people to manage. One person can't do
Right. Right. And that's how, when we wrote the proposal,
that.
that's how we wrote it out, was that we would do it with the management team, and then we would then take it with each of those
Yeah.
individual teams.
Yeah. I'm seeing like family trees in my brain.
Yep, that's exactly how we wrote it out. Um, and my heart is right there at that service-based business, 10 employees or fewer, where I can get you all in the room right there. And we can just, and because you can see it, like all of a sudden you can be like, oh my gosh, Katie loves to dig in and do these things, but she hates writing the training videos.
Mhm.
But Josie loves to write the training videos. So let's make sure, like you just see it happen.
Mhm.
That I love.
I love that. I love that. I love that you're making such positive changes for business owners within the resources they have. You said
Yeah.
they didn't add anybody.
Nope. We
And
did. Nope. Added no one.
that's awesome. There's, in business, there's scaling, right? Where you're within your resources and you scale and you fill out your resources. And then there's the next part, which is growth, where you have to bring in more resources. So more people, more money, all of the things that you need to grow. So I think taking a look at what's still scalable, where are we missing these pockets where we can still scale without bringing in more
Right.
resources? That's a cost savings for a business as well,
Hmm.
a huge cost savings.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also a headache savings. It's a headache to bring in more people and more money and all of those things. So I love that. So I'm sure that you have, actually, hold on, let me ask you another question. Um, Before we get into the resources that you have, because I know you have some, let's just talk about some advice. If you know someone who feels that their team lacks the skills or motivation to take on the delegated tasks, what advice would you give to them to help them find that person's zone of genius or get them through that hurdle?
I think the first thing is let's work off of data, not feelings.
Mm,
So,
that's hard as a business owner. That's hard.
so just because you think they lack the motivation or the skills, like let's find out if that's actually true. So I like using a 1 to 4 scale because there's no hanging out in the middle on a 1 to 4. And I'll ask. So whenever I'm bringing in a new team member, I have like everything I can think of that we might potentially delegate to them, whether it is on the list of things I think we are looking for. I just, everything in the kitchen sink goes on this thing. And then I ask them to rank 1 to 4 skills and 1 to 4 interest.
Okay.
And then tell them right up front, there's no way that you're going to be able to put a 4 on all the things because literally they are so random and so far apart. You can't possibly be skilled and like all of these things, which then makes the things they're really, really like and they're really, really good at stand out. And I skew the scale. So like 2, 3, and 4 are all good.
Okay.
That way you're really making them distinguish between I like it, I really, really like it, and I love it versus I don't like this at all. And so that way, I think you're starting to get a little more data and you're starting to get a little more of I'm motivated or not motivated or whatever, because you'll start to see, yeah, there's a lot of ones and ones or ones and twos. So that's one thing, get the data. The other thing is to have open and honest conversations around expectations as far as how much people can work in their zone of genius.
Mm.
A goal is everybody in the company is 70%. You are probably starting at not that. Like you could be I walk in, sometimes we're starting at like 20% because A, you've never heard of it. So you're just working on whatever it is you're working on. And you may have started with 5 employees and then lost some. And now you're at 3 and they just absorbed the work of the 2 who left. Like, and it was random how they got the work. So like, there's no way that you were as strategic as you would have liked to have been if you could have started at the beginning saying, these are my 3 employees and I'm going to assign everyone the stuff. So you just start right up front with, look, we would love that everyone could be at 70%. We're not there. And if we were there, that means that 30% of the time, we're all going to be doing stuff we don't like.
That was
Or
one of
aren't
the
good.
questions is when you want people in their zone of genius, we all need to do stuff we don't like.
Yes.
So how do you, especially with, and I shouldn't say this, but some of the younger generation, they just don't want to do things they don't like. And like the answer is that's cool, but you still got to do it.
And I think when you can say our goal is to get us all to 70,
Mm-hmm.
which means we all are going to be doing 30 of stuff we don't love.
Right.
But let's figure out where we are now and let's keep checking the data to see how we're moving.
Yeah.
And let's figure out what's the next thing we all can do to get our zone of genius number bumped up a little bit higher and a little bit higher. Because I think that helps. Like you can't motivate someone else.
Right. No.
But you can help show them what their path is.
Mm-hmm.
And they can then figure out whether or not that will motivate them.
Yeah. It's a little easier to do the things that you don't want to do when you know that 70% of the time you get to do the things you want to do. It's
Right.
like vegetables. Like there's some vegetables you really don't like, but you have to eat them because you have to get all your minerals in. But then like, the other 70% you probably like them, so it's worth it.
Yes,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. So tell me, is that all the steps? So you use that data to, awesome, cool.
That's what I do. Yeah.
And then, so now another piece of advice, what would you tell business owners who want to grow their business without burning out? Such a hard challenge.
Right. So I would just say, figure out the zone of genius.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's, to me, that's the first step.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out yours, figure out your team,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can start making a plan for how do we start switching things around, but start figuring out your resource bench. So, like I have a number of clients who have built out the resource bench
Mm-hmm.
without spending a lot of money.
Right.
So
In their scale level. Yeah.
exactly. So using services just like yours, interns, like a lot of different ways
Mm-hmm.
that they can fill their gaps without having to hire full-time employees. But you can't do that if you don't know what everyone's zone of genius is to know where your gaps are.
Yeah.
And
And
so
also,
that,
if you don't know the resources, so reach
yeah,
out to Lisa because you can make the connections of the resources that they have access to.
eh, yeah, who would have thought? Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, the building up your resources is key. It's also there's highs and lows to that too. Like you said, I've worked with interns before. Sometimes it's more work than it's worth. So you need to know your capacity to
Mhm.
delegate and work with that intern, especially if you're getting from like, we have a bunch of colleges here. So like from a local college, they might not have all the skills that you need them to have. And if you don't have the time to teach them those skills, they're probably not a good resource for you because they're going to be exact opposite. I think that comes really in bringing anybody on your team. Like
Right, exactly.
how much capacity do you have to train them?
Mhm. And what have you built in?
Mhm.
So like one of my clients has used interns super well
Yeah.
because they're coming from the local high school.
Mhm.
They've built processes in. So whenever they have the intern has, regardless of the intern, they're doing the same tasks.
Mhm.
And so they can just plug them right into a spot. The
Mhm.
processes are there. The person's supervising that. Like they've built it out. It took them a couple months, but
Yeah.
it's there.
Yeah.
If you don't have that in place, like that,
You're herding cats at that point.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So like that works there.
mhm.
If you're like the CPA firm, they have an intern that helps during tax time every year.
Mhm.
It's not always the same intern, but again, they're coming out of a program that's an accounting program.
Mhm.
So they already have this base level skill set.
Right.
They already have the processes in place.
And they can run the processes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So there's like to your point, there's got to be this level.
Yeah. Yeah. There definitely does. So I know you have resources available. Tell me the resource that you have available for people right now.
I right now we have this amazing delegating audit. So everyone is somewhere different on their delegating journey. So some of my clients delegate right now and think they're delegating really well. And then they take the audit and we're able to find like two or three places where we're like, ooh, turns out there's still a couple places that we could bump up and fine tune. Other people are like, I didn't even know that there was a process to delegate. I really did think that you go do this thing was how you delegate. So the point of the audit, 12 questions, and it hits, like we said earlier, who, what, how. It'll help you assess where you are in those three areas. And then I just look at your answers and shoot you back a quick loom with a couple suggestions on so everybody gets personalized feedback on here's what I see
Mhm.
and here's a couple very specific strategic things that you can do moving forward.
Awesome. I'm going to take that.
Yes,
I will be doing that later this afternoon.
fantastic.
Yeah. Awesome. So Lisa, how do people find you?
Probably the best way, just go to the website, so impactivestrategies.com.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much for talking today about your zone of genius. I've learned so much as always from you, and I feel inspired to delegate more and be really a better leader. And I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.